Captain Jake Miller rubbed his tired eyes and stared at the scanner readings for the third time that morning. The UEES Discovery had been drifting in Jupiter's shadow for hours. The asteroid they were supposed to mine had turned out to be mostly worthless rock, barely enough metals to justify the fuel it had taken to get there. His coffee had gone cold an hour ago. The ship's recycled air carried that faint, metallic tang, the smell of machinery and monotony that seemed to define long months in space. This was not the kind of mission that made history. At least, not until something appeared that wasn't supposed to be there. Lisa Johnson, the ship's engineer, emerged from the maintenance hatch. Strands of blonde hair had escaped her ponytail, and there was a streak of grease across her cheek. She was muttering about plasma conduit efficiency as if the ship itself could hear her, a habit the rest of the crew had gotten used to. Pete Rodriguez sat at the navigation console, double-checking their position relative to Jupiter's massive gravitational pull. Pete was precise to a fault. The kind of man who measured 3 times before cutting once. His fingers drummed against the console whenever he was thinking too hard, and right now, they were drumming fast. Amy Walsh, their communications specialist, was typing notes into her log. She had a gift for turning even boring missions into narratives worth listening to. Secretly, she dreamed of making a full documentary about space exploration, a story for humanity's grandchildren to watch. And then there was Tony Bennett, head of security. He leaned against the bulkhead with his arms crossed. On a mining vessel, security mostly meant preventing disputes over food rations or making sure no one went stir-crazy and picked fights. He kept in shape, but the biggest threats he usually faced were malfunctioning cargo loaders. A routine mission. A tired crew. And then Pete sat up straight. His drumming fingers froze. "Captain," Pete said carefully, "I'm picking up some unusual readings. About 2 kilometers off our starboard side." The bridge went quiet. Jake walked over to Pete's console. The navigation display showed gravitational signatures, multiple, in fact, but the optical cameras reported nothing but empty space. It was like staring at the shadows of invisible mountains. Lisa frowned and pulled up diagnostics. Could be sensor malfunction. The quantum field generators have been acting strange since that storm last week. Amy swiveled in her chair, her eyes alive with curiosity. Or it could be something actually interesting. Tony pushed himself off the bulkhead. Define interesting. Bonus interesting. Or the kind of interesting that gets us all killed. Jake studied the readouts again. In 15 years of mining, he'd seen strange things, plasma storms that bent light, rocks that sang when struck. Space often looked like magic until science explained it. But this was different. "Pete, take us in slowly," Jake ordered. "Let's see what we're dealing with." The Discovery glided forward. As they approached, the readings sharpened. The invisible masses weren't random. They were arranged in formation. Lisa's voice was quiet. "Those aren't asteroids. That's a fleet." Amy had already started recording. Could it be cloaking? Maybe a black-budget project the government never told us about. Tony shook his head. The government can barely keep cafeteria menus secret. No way they've got an invisible fleet just sitting by Jupiter. Then, something shifted. A new contact appeared, a shuttle-sized craft, this one visible to their sensors and their eyes. It glided toward them with unnerving grace, wrapped in an energy field that shimmered faintly against the darkness. Its design was curved, elegant, unlike anything Earth had ever built. "Well," Amy whispered, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and awe. "That's definitely not ours." The alien vessel stopped 100 meters away. Silence hung between the two ships. Then Amy's console lit up. Incoming transmission. A voice filled the Discovery's bridge, deep and resonant, automatically translated into English. "Unknown vessel, this is Admiral Vexter of the Xerian Imperial Fleet. You have trespassed into Imperial space. Surrender immediately, and prepare to be boarded. The words were delivered with ceremonial precision, like a declaration read from a script. Jake blinked. His crew froze. Even Tony, usually the skeptic, straightened unconsciously. The threat hung heavy in the recycled air. Jake leaned toward the comm panel. His voice was steady, but casual. Hello there. This is Captain Jake Miller of the Earth vessel Discovery. I think there's been some kind of mistake. We're just a mining crew. Honestly, there's nothing interesting here except lousy rocks. Maybe you're lost. The bridge went silent. Lisa's grease-streaked face looked stunned. Pete tapped frantically at his console, as though double-checking reality itself. Amy sat completely still, recording everything. Then, the alien admiral's voice returned, but this time it sounded confused. Lost? You dare suggest the mighty Xerian Empire is lost? We have been monitoring your primitive world for 2 centuries, waiting for the moment to claim it. Lisa raised an eyebrow. 2 centuries. If they've been watching us that long, shouldn't they know we're not exactly primitive anymore? Pete nodded. If their intel's that outdated, they've missed the last 100 years of progress. We've advanced more in the last 50 than in the previous 1,000. Amy was trembling with excitement as she whispered into her recorder, "First contact. And they think we're still primitive. This changes everything." Tony peered out at the alien shuttle. Their design looks old-fashioned. Retro. Like someone built a spaceship based on a 1950s science fiction poster. Admiral Vexter's voice returned, this time sharp with irritation. Silence, primitives. You will be catalogued and processed for servitude. Resistance will result in immediate termination. Jake rubbed his temples. Did he just call us primitives and threaten to enslave us? For the record, that seems a little rude for a first meeting. Amy confirmed, yep. Definitely rude. And I'm broadcasting this live back to Earth. Lisa was scanning the alien vessel. You know what's strange? Their tech doesn't look that advanced. Exotic matter hull, sure, but their engine design is actually less efficient than ours. Pete gestured at the fleet formation. And look at how those cloaked ships are bunched up. No overlapping fire arcs. Any rookie cadet could point out the flaws. The Admiral's voice rose in pitch, clearly rattled by their lack of submission. You will respect the Empire. We have conquered 17 star systems. 17, in 2 centuries. Tony scoffed. That's not impressive. Human corporations expand faster than that. Jake exhaled slowly. The picture was coming into focus. These weren't gods. Not even titans. This empire sounded more like a relic, a bully that had never faced anyone willing to laugh at its threats. He leaned into the comm again. Admiral, with respect, we don't really do fear and submission. How about we just share some coffee and talk? There was a pause. Then, incredulity. Coffee? What is this, ritual beverage? Lisa brightened. Oh, you've got to try it. Coffee is liquid productivity. Amy's recorder caught every word. Her voice was hushed, almost reverent. Note to history, first contact may be decided by coffee. But Pete's console lit up with new warnings. The invisible fleet was moving into position. Slowly. Predictably. Like chess pieces sliding into place on a board humanity had already outgrown. And Jake Miller, captain of a mining ship, realized the impossible truth. Humanity's first interstellar encounter might not be with an invincible galactic empire, but with a crumbling one, stuck in the past, about to discover what humans had become. The bridge of the Discovery felt strangely calm after Admiral Vexter's latest proclamation. The alien's voice still echoed in Jake's mind, "You will be processed for servitude." The words were meant to inspire terror. But all they inspired in the crew was a kind of awkward silence, followed by Tony's snorting laughter. Processed for servitude? What is this, Saturday morning cartoons? Lisa grinned. If they start twirling mustaches, I'm out. Even Amy, who was still recording everything for posterity, allowed herself a nervous laugh. Jake leaned back in the captain's chair. The picture was clear now. This Xerian Empire wasn't the unstoppable colossus its admiral claimed. It was a shadow of something greater, a fading echo. And maybe, just maybe, humanity's timing couldn't be more perfect. Back on Earth, Amy's live broadcast had gone viral. Within hours, billions were watching as history unfolded in real time. Every screen flickered with images from the Discovery. The elegant alien shuttle floating against Jupiter's storms, the threats of the self-proclaimed empire, the crew's casual banter that seemed to cut through fear itself. World leaders watched closely. Scientists analyzed every frame of alien technology. Psychologists dissected the admiral's tone, his choice of words, his reliance on theater. And ordinary people, in cafes, classrooms, factories, leaned in, captivated. For centuries, humanity had wondered what first contact would look like. Some expected awe and transcendence. Others feared annihilation. No one had predicted that aliens would arrive sounding like bureaucrats from a forgotten empire, demanding submission with outdated intimidation tactics. It was almost funny. And in that humor, humanity found courage. On the bridge, Lisa was running diagnostics. You know, their tech is advanced, but not impossibly so. Their engines burn hotter, their energy fields leak at predictable intervals, and their formation tactics. She shook her head. Honestly? Amateur hour. Pete pointed to the scanner. Look at their reaction times. Their ships move like they're waiting for approval before every maneuver. Centralized command, maybe. Rigid hierarchy. They'd be crushed in any modern conflict simulation. Tony crossed his arms. So they've survived this long by bullying weaker civilizations. But they've never faced anyone who could hit back. Jake nodded slowly. Exactly. Their power isn't in their ships. It's in the story they tell. The myth of invincibility. Amy's recorder was already running. She spoke softly, almost narrating for history. An empire built on theater. On psychological dominance. On making others believe resistance is impossible. But myths only work until someone laughs at them. The alien admiral's voice crackled through again. You delay the inevitable. Surrender, or the empire will unleash destruction unlike any you have known. Jake leaned forward, his tone calm. Admiral Vexter, with respect, humanity's had a rough history. We've faced empires before. Some lasted centuries. Some thought they would rule forever. None of them exist anymore. There was a pause. The alien voice returned, strained. You compare us, to your primitive wars? Lisa muttered, if the shoe fits. But Jake wasn't finished. He gestured to Amy. She patched his words directly into the broadcast for Earth, and, more importantly, for the Xerians. We don't seek conquest, Jake said, steady as stone. We don't seek servitude. What we seek is simple, respect. You say you've conquered 17 star systems. We say, that ends here. Because Earth has returned to the stars, and we don't kneel. The words rippled outward, across Earth, across the alien fleet. A declaration not of war, but of refusal. And it worked. The aliens hesitated. Lisa's scanners showed small irregularities. Some of the cloaked ships flickered in and out of visibility, as though their crews were unsure. Pete frowned. They're hesitating. Their formation's breaking. I think they weren't expecting defiance. Tony chuckled. Bullies never do. Amy's voice was hushed with wonder. Do you realize what's happening? This isn't just contact. This is psychological warfare. And we're winning. Jake exhaled slowly. For the first time since the alien fleet appeared, he allowed himself to believe it. The Xerian Empire wasn't a juggernaut. It was a decaying monument to a past age, clinging to rituals of fear. And Earth, humanity, had finally grown beyond fear. But even as victory seemed possible, Amy noticed something strange in the transmission logs. Hidden beneath the Admiral's threats, there were faint bursts of data. Not directed at the Discovery, but at some distant receiver. She leaned closer. Captain, someone else is listening. The Admiral isn't just posturing to us. He's reporting to someone, or something, far away. Lisa froze. Maybe the real Empire? Maybe they're not as alone as they look. The thought chilled the bridge. What if this Xerian fleet was just one fragment of something larger, a pawn of a power that had once ruled not 17, but thousands of systems? Jake kept his face calm, but inside, he felt the weight of it. Humanity had revealed itself. The galaxy now knew Earth was no longer silent. And somewhere out there, perhaps, the true masters of the Empire had stirred. The crew debated their options. Attack? Run? Try to negotiate further? But Jake knew the answer. Humanity's strength wasn't just in weapons or technology. It was in patience. In silence when silence mattered. In choosing not to reveal everything at once. He tapped the calm Admiral Vexter. We've heard your threats. We've made our position clear. Now you have a choice, leave peacefully, or test what humanity has become. The line went quiet. Seconds dragged into minutes. Then, the alien shuttle withdrew. Slowly. Hesitantly. Like a predator that had bitten into prey and found steel instead of flesh. The cloaked fleet followed, their movements disorganized, uncertain. And just like that, the Xerian Empire vanished back into the void. Amy broke the silence. Her voice trembled with awe. Captain, we just won the first battle for Earth. And we didn't fire a single shot. Lisa added, we exposed them. Their power is an illusion, and now the whole galaxy knows it. Pete nodded, though his expression remained troubled. Yes. But illusions die hard. They'll be back. And next time, they may not come alone. Jake stood, gazing out the viewport at Jupiter's swirling storms. He thought of Earth, billions of people watching, hoping, wondering. The old fears were gone. Humanity had looked into the face of an empire and laughed. But in the back of his mind, he couldn't shake Amy's discovery. The hidden signals. The possibility of something greater, older, more dangerous than the Xerians. The galaxy was vast. And humanity had just announced its return. There would be consequences. And the real war, the one written in silence and shadows, had only just begun. The alien fleet's retreat left an eerie quiet. For the first time in history, humanity had faced down an interstellar power, and won, without a single shot fired. The bridge of the Discovery buzzed with nervous energy. Tony let out a long breath, breaking the silence. Well. That was easy. Lisa shot him a sharp look. Don't say that. Nothing about this is easy. Pete folded his arms. She's right. Bullies don't just walk away. They regroup. And when they come back, they'll bring something worse. Jake didn't respond. His eyes were fixed on the endless black beyond Jupiter, where the Xerian fleet had vanished. He knew this was no ending. It was the beginning. Amy was still combing through the logs. Her brow furrowed. There it is again. That transmission. Jake turned. The one they were sending while they talked to us. She nodded. I've run it through every decryption system we've got. It's not a distress call, and it's not orders. It's a report. But the language structure is ancient. Older than their empire. Lisa leaned in. Older how? Amy hesitated, then whispered, 500,000 years. Maybe more. The crew went still. 500,000 years, before Homo sapiens had even stood upright. Pete's voice was low. So who were they reporting to? Amy looked at him, then at Jake. Not the Xerian Empire. Something else. Something that's been asleep a very, very long time. On Earth, the news spread like wildfire. The Xerians' defeat became the symbol of a new era. Crowds filled streets in celebration. Children drew starships and spoke of adventures among the stars. For the first time in centuries, humanity looked outward together, not inward apart. But in the halls of power, the mood was more cautious. Military analysts warned that Earth had revealed too much. That the Empire would return. That humanity was not yet ready for open war. Philosophers asked the deeper question. Had humanity just woken something better left sleeping? Because Amy's discovery could not be ignored. The Xerians weren't the rulers of the galaxy. They were caretakers. Messengers. And they had just informed their masters that Earth had risen again. The answer came sooner than anyone expected. 3 weeks after the retreat, a transmission arrived at the edge of the solar system. Not from the Xerians, but from a species humanity had never encountered, the Harari. Their voice was soft, resonant, like wind through a canyon. Children of Earth. We watched as you defied the Xerians. We admired your courage. But courage without caution will awaken ruin. Do you understand what you have done? Jake stood in the center of the bridge, listening as the alien message played for the world. Amy whispered, they know. The Harari spoke again. The Xerians are not an empire. They are curators. For 500,000 years, they have maintained silence across this region of the galaxy. Not for their own sake, but to keep something else asleep. You have broken that silence. Lisa frowned. What could be so dangerous it needed silence to contain it? The Harari answered, as though hearing her question across light years. We call them the architects. The first empire. The oldest. The ones who shaped stars and bent galaxies to their will. They fell into dormancy when the universe was young. And they must remain forgotten. But now, they will hear you. The world split in its response. Some believed the Harari, that humanity had stirred an ancient terror best left undisturbed. Others dismissed it as manipulation, another empire using fear as control. But the facts were undeniable. Amy's data confirmed it, the Xerian signal was not a distress call, but a beacon. And it was not aimed at any nearby system, but at the void between galaxies, where nothing should exist. Nothing, except perhaps something so old and vast that stars themselves had become playthings. It began as a whisper. Telescopes across the world detected anomalies at the edge of Andromeda. Gravitational distortions, structures moving faster than physics allowed, patterns in the cosmic background radiation that no natural force could explain. Lisa stared at the readings. That's not ships. That's architecture. Entire stars arranged like atoms in a machine. Pete muttered, the architects. For the first time since the Xerians' retreat, Jake felt something colder than fear, the weight of inevitability. Humanity had stepped onto a stage they didn't even know existed. And now the oldest audience in the universe was stirring in its sleep. On Earth, debates raged. Should humanity retreat? Hide? Attempt to undo what had been done? Or should they press forward, meet whatever came, and finally prove that the species which had survived its own wars, its own empires, its own self-destruction, could face even gods? Amy spoke on the broadcast one night, her voice calm and steady. We may have woken something greater than we imagined. But the choice before us is the same as it has always been: do we live in fear, or do we live in truth? If the architects are coming, then let them come. Humanity will not hide. Not again. Her words spread like wildfire, reaching billions. Fear did not vanish, but it became something else: resolve. Then it happened. At the edge of the solar system, beyond Neptune's orbit, a ripple passed through spacetime itself. Instruments went wild. Communications faltered. And for a moment, every human mind that looked up at the night sky felt it: a presence. Not a ship. Not a fleet. A thought. The first whisper of the architects. It was not words, not language, but a sensation: amusement, curiosity, and hunger. Jake gripped the railing on the Discovery's bridge, his heart pounding. They've heard us. Amy's recorder trembled in her hands. She whispered into it, as though narrating for all of history. And the architects have awakened. The Xerians would return. The Harari would watch. Humanity would prepare. But no one, not even the oldest alien civilizations, truly knew what it meant that the architects stirred again. Would they come as gods? As conquerors? As indifferent forces of nature, reshaping the galaxy simply because they could? No one could answer. Not yet. What humanity knew was this: the silence of 500,000 years was broken. The stars had shifted. The oldest empire had opened its eyes. And for the first time in history, humanity was not afraid. Because this time, the galaxy would not face the architects alone. It would face them with Earth, reborn, unbroken, and unafraid.